Thank you, Rabbi Haron. Pleasure, privilege to be here. So it looks like you all are not the greatest scholars of Hebrew language. And difficulties of reading some of the text may be a little bit of an issue. Okay? You're nodding your heads in agreement with all of that? I gave out 6 handouts and it's literally all I got. This is a course that I originally did at a couple of other places where we were dealing with people who had a pretty good command of reading Hebrew. So what I want to do is do this course over a couple of sessions, I think up to 3, maybe more, and go backwards from the conclusion, right? Because this is called the 8 Habits of Highly Spiritual People, right? You read, of course, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective, whatever that book is called.
Business guys?
No, it's a Stephen Covey book. 7 Habits of Highly Effective something or others. And it's a book that a lot of people read and, of course, do nothing with, right? And I use it as a doorstop. Here we are looking at a text, and it's on the 2nd page, which it's of course entirely in Hebrew. I'm going to introduce the text, but what we've got on the following pages are my translation of it. So starting on page number 3 and into page number 4, you will have the translation that I have made, which is not entirely literal, but is going to explain a great deal of what is being said. And then if you look at page 4, you've got the 8 garments, a list of things to do. 8 things to do, 8 things that you should be doing. That's where we're actually going to start, once you get through a little bit of an introduction as to where we are in terms of the spectrum of Jewish life and learning. Okay? So 1 through 8. Firstly, let me start by asking a basic sort of question. What do you know about Chassidut and Hasidism? Familiar part of the world of Judaism or Jewish knowledge?
Familiar.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you to explain who started Hasidism. Rabbi Israel Baal Shem Tov, 1690 something, right? He dies in about 1760. That one date I do remember. Founder, total radical new movement within Judaism, changed the entire world. Changed absolutely everything. And one of the great rabbis that followed in his footsteps is one that we're going to be learning today, and that is Rabbi Mordechai Yosef Lehner of Ishbitz. Right? Great name for a rabbi. Rabbi Lehner, right? Lehner, mean to read. Okay. You want good jokes, you hire a comedian, right? I can be really smart about who he is. I've got the Wikipedia article in front of me anyway. 1801 to 1854. He lived in a little town called Ishbitz and was one of the most radical thinkers of the Hasidic world. The founder of Hasidism has died in 1760. This gentleman is born 40-odd years later. So the movement is already well established. It's already broken up into 2 major streams, one that focuses on the personality of the rabbi, of the tzaddik, of the perfect person, the intermediary between heaven and earth, which is not where we are today. Rabbi Mordechai Yosef Lehner, the Rabbi of Ishbitz, is totally the other way. He looks at you, the individual, and says, take responsibility for yourself. Here's the way that you're going to become great. And
what makes him radical?
He was totally radical. One of the big things that he keeps saying is what we were sort of talking about when we just started, that there's no such thing as free choice. You have no freedom of will. You have no free will at all in anything, even in belief. If you're a non-believer, if you are an agnostic, that's because God wants you to be, right? That's a topic for another day, right? His whole attitude towards life, towards humanity. It's an enormously interesting book. It's actually very short. It's one of these cases, like a lot of the great Hasidic rabbis, he didn't write down his own book. It's put together by his grandchildren and one of his sons, and over 3 different periods, they collected together the absolute essence of what he said about each Torah reading of the week, about the festivals, about the Talmud. So if you're looking, for example, at the Parsha of this week, the Torah reading for Pinchas, right, wherever we happen to be, we're in the book of Numbers, you're going to have to look in 3 different volumes because over about 10, 15 years or so, they got together and wrote this down 3 times. You have very, very, very brief, condensed essence of what was said. I'm guessing he didn't get up and speak for, 5 minutes. I'm guessing he gave a lecture and a talk that lasted for hours. I just saw on the internet the Rabbi of Lubavitch. I think the last 10 years of his talks is only 45 volumes. And it's on sale right now. You had a question, sir?
Yeah, wouldn't the Rabbi disagree at the get-go because the conflict of the animal soul and the godly soul is where our free choice is?
It's totally, I can't go into the subject at all here. We're here doing, it's enormous. And to really understand what he means by there's no free will, you've got to look at a lot of sources in the original Rebbe, in his children's writing, in his grandchildren's writing, and in all the students thereof. It's a very, very big analysis. For me in my life, I can tell you, it makes a lot of sense to say, I don't have any choice. I have to do this. Right? Whereas there are plenty of people who say, I get up in the morning and I choose to be happy. I choose to do this. It's what works. It's what works for the individual. But here we're in a totally different aspect of the Rebbe of Ishbitz. And Rabbi Mordechai Yosef, what I think he does is, and this is just my sort of overall analysis, is he looks at lists of things in the Bible, in the Talmud, in texts of Jewish law, and says, like in this example, there are 8 things. And he brings together a couple of things that there are 8 of, and says, here's a list that you should know off by heart. The 8 garments of the high priest. And if you don't know them by heart, well, it's something you could learn, because we all put on clothes in a certain order, and the high priest put on clothing, very special clothing, in a certain order, and they all represented different things, and he is going to ultimately take this to each one of them having a life lesson and a habit that we should be practicing every day of our lives. And it's as simple as, I get up in the morning, I put my pants on, I think of this. I put my shirt on, I think of that. I put a hat on, I think of something else. And even if I don't wear all of these garments, and even if I stay home in my bathrobe all day, which I quite often do, you can sit down and do this as a meditation, as a focusing of where you're going to in your life and what you're doing with your life. The interesting thing about this one is he revisits the subject 3 more times, I think even 4 times. So if you stick with it, and you really want to get into all of this stuff, there are variations on what the 8 habits are. Okay? Reasonable amount of introduction? Good. Mm-hmm. So, I need to give you one more piece of information here. Who were the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah? Translated into English, I mean, I'm incredibly smart here. I have a printed page from Wikipedia, right? Anyone can look this stuff up. The Men of the Great Assembly, founded by the prophet Ezra in about 520 BCE, institution of Torah sages led the Jewish people from the beginning of the Second Temple era. Of importance to us are a couple of things. They put together the Hebrew Bible, Tanakh, right? They decided which books are included in the Bible and which books are not. How many books are there in the Hebrew Bible?
24.
Exactly. There are, if you open it, of course, many more. Jewish tradition puts together 1st, 2nd Samuel and the 2 books of Kings as one, if I remember correctly. The 12 prophets, 12 what we call minor prophets, are all included as one. of extreme importance to us is they regulated and fixed the order of daily prayer, especially the core prayer, the Amidah, the silent prayer that we say standing 3 times a day. And here, of very great importance to us, is the prayer introducing the Shema, right? You all know what the Shema is, right? Okay, if you don't, we can have a course and study just the Shema and the history of all the prayers around it. But there's a list of 8 things in the prayer right before the Shema, which the Rebbe of Ishbitz is going to connect with the 8 garments of the high priest. Okay? Take a breather.
You can tell this is already going to be very deep.
It's very deep, but it's very simple at the same time. And when you get to the end of this, I predict that you will have the reaction of, just a moment, I knew this all along. This is a new idea. It's wow, it's an oh my God, it's an eureka moment. When you start to think about it, you're going to say, I knew this all along. And that's the greatness of the great Hasidic rabbis. The ones that appeal to me, speak to me directly, give me something that goes, oh wow, I gotta do this, I gotta make this part of my life. Or else, they kick me where it hurts, because I need to be kicked and hurt and told something that I don't want to hear. A lot of the time these books will reach out to you and give you a good smack and a good kick, metaphorically of course. Here, it's just helping you with your life. And if we start at the beginning, we should be starting just with, I know I wrote down exactly what I'm going to do. Yeah, we're going to start at the very, very beginning, which is actually the middle and the end. If you look at page number 4 in the handout, right? So the middle of page 4. And then we're going to go back and look at what this whole high priest thing is and what his special garments are, because the message is so simple, so obvious that you of course have known it already, right? We are taking this specifically from one text in the Mei HaShiloach, in the writings of Rabbi Mordechai Yosef of Ishbitz. And he says here, or I derive and I put it together. He doesn't tell you to go and do these 8 things, but it can't be for any other purpose. Number 1 is stop imagining. Live your life in reality. Don't be a Walter Mitty, right? Remember that book? What's that short Secret Life of Walter Mitty? They made a movie of it recently. I think it was a short story rather than a book. I remember from high school, like a long, long time ago. Don't imagine things. Don't imagine that you're something other than what you are. Don't imagine that you have whatever it is you happen to imagine things. Don't daydream your way through life. Number 2.
So when you accept reality, as if you have a difficult situation, accept it?
Possibly. This is a work in progress, as they say. A lot of the things that I do when I start putting out and printing a list, it's a work in progress. And it's also a personalized work in progress. You know, my issue with reality and the reality that I have to live in is not the same as yours. So feel free to take this any way you want. Right?
So the best we can do, any of us, is subjective reality. There's only one objective reality, which would be Hashem.
Okay.
So all our realities are subjective.
Okay. Okay.
Do you think it also means not to live in the past or the future, but be in the present moment?
Generally, Chassidut is going to tell you there's no past, present, or future, but that's the Doctor Who sort of issue that we will get to another time. This is one of the lists, and this is the first thing. The numbers are important because the way they're numbered in the prayer before the Shema, and the way they're numbered in the Bible in Exodus 28, and the way they're numbered in the piece of Talmud is going to be different. But this is the list. I would tend to say it makes sense to start with the first garment you put on. You put on your pants before you put on your shirt. So the more basic issues first, but again, where are your priorities and where are your issues? That's the way you order your list, right? Number 2, don't hate anybody. That's a hard one. Equality of all people. And we'll see how he develops this from the plate that the high priest wore on his chest and all the stones on it. Get to know yourself at the deepest soul level. And try and find some inkling of where you are in the process of reincarnation. We're in the world of Zohar, we're in the world of Jewish mysticism, where reincarnation is a given. Right? If you don't believe in reincarnation, that's perfectly okay. You are not denying the existence of God, right? If you don't think this works, it doesn't work. It is interesting. It is more than interesting.
Does he tell you how to know yourself at the deepest level?
Not here. The basic point that you get with a lot of the Rebbe of Ishbitz is he gives you the tip of the iceberg. And then you go into the next generations. You go into Reb Tzadok HaKohen. You go into the Beit Yaakov, right? And the number one student, and then the one of the sons. And they expand. And Reb Tzadok is the one who talks about how to listen to your messages, right? It's one of those popular books that's been, Rabbi Frand, I think, wrote a book, Listen to Your Messages. This is it. And this is based on the tunic that the high priest wore. We're going to get into all of these details. The tunic had little bells on it. So the bells made a noise when he moved. Listen to the noise that you are making as you walk through life. There's a message here. Why are we sitting here? Why aren't we somewhere else?
You could have been in another room.
We could have been in the other room without the air conditioning and the comfortable chairs, right?
Table, no table.
Listen to your messages. What's going on? What are you being told? And Reb Tzadok is the one who does this whole thing on dream work, on getting ready to receive genuine prophecy and messages from God in your dreams. So, again, that's another course that we can do if you're interested. Number 4, accept advice and wisdom from anyone. Don't get on your high horse, as they say. Everybody has something to teach you. Anyone can be your teacher, right? Mm-hmm. Number 5, share your knowledge and experience. That's one of the hardest things that there is in the whole world. Again, it's a very big aside that comes up here. What's the thing that's holding back Mashiach? Back to your question, sir, before we started. What's holding back the perfect world from being here right now? We don't know how to share. We didn't watch Barney when we were kids, right? You remember that? My daughter loved Barney. Not just sharing, but allowing other people to have stuff. Bless you. If somebody else has something, be happy. Be glad that someone else gets the promotion, gets the job, has money, has wisdom, is smart. Whatever it happens to be.
Is this the ego and the animal soul?
No, we're totally not dealing with souls here at all.
Ego?
I'm not prepared to psychoanalyze, but maybe. Yeah. Share. If you know something, share it with others.
It's like Pekero, those last two, right? It's like learn from everyone, and the second one is that even if you know Aleph Bet, then another person knows Aleph, so teach them Bet, like teach them.
Right, and we all have experience, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. We all have been through different things in life, and we do have an ability to share it. Number 6, do not hurt people. Pretty darn obvious, really. But what he brings in here is be above doubt and suspicion. You hurt somebody else when you allow them to suspect you of something. There's a very big phenomenon in the Jewish world of I need to keep up appearances of how religiously observant I am. Right? That's one of the big traps that a lot of our brothers and sisters have fallen into. I can't let anyone know that my level of observance of kashrut, for example, falls below, or I don't keep Shabbat up to the, whatever it is. We're very worried about that. Here he's telling you on a much broader level, and you'll see the examples that he's going to bring. Don't let someone have a negative opinion of you, that you've done something wrong, that you're not doing something right, and that is harm to them. If I act in a way that other people can suspect me, okay? Number 7, do mitzvot. Right? Up to this point, we haven't been talking about mitzvahs at all. One of the things that you will notice when you get into this whole branch of Hasidism is they are not front and center saying, keep Shabbos, put on tefillin, wear modest clothes, right? Give lots of charity, respect rabbis, right? None of this stuff is there. None of this stuff is there. And even in the opposite direction, I'm sorry, but we're being recorded and I'll say it. You have within this particular branch of the faith, you have the notion that there are priorities in your life that are so important, not life-threatening situations, not like saving someone from a burning building, but there are such great priorities that they override the doing of mitzvot even. We'll get to it eventually. It'll take us a while. But the mitzvot, he said, are a foundation for your relationship with God. When you do commandments, as they are written in the Bible, as they are written in the various books of Jewish law, you have something to relate to and talk to God about. Right? Why do you like people? Why do you get along with some people and not others? Because you have a common language. You have a shared connection. It's exactly the same with God. One of the greatest and most profound lessons that you get from a lot of Chassidut is the humanizing of God and the human relationship that God wants with us. Right? Number 8, it had to come to this because it's everywhere. Control your sexual desires. Achieve perpetuity and eternity through restraint in intimate relations. Right? Always keep your pants on, as they say. Right? And it works in English. Okay? That's the list. That's the list. That's the list of 8 things. Each one of these goes with one of the garments of the high priest. And if you go to the website of the Temple Institute, you can get a bunch of pictures of that, of all of these things. If you want afterwards, I'll show you a few that I've downloaded, or we can do a field trip and go out for lunch or something like that. In the old city, I don't know what the admission is, but it's worth seeing this. They have made the garments of the high priest, the utensils for the temple, ready to use, ready to rock and roll. Mashiach arrives tomorrow. Certain obstacles are removed. We have a temple. We start sacrificing. They're ready. Yay! So we're not terribly political here at all, right? Where are we going to start? I want to start with the book of Exodus, chapter 28, and if you have I put the relevant verses on the top of page number 3. But I think what I want to do is read through a little bit of the text itself from the actual Bible. So if you have one in front of you, we're going to be going into a period of time. If you have a phone, it's on Sefaria, or go to Chabad.org and just get the translation from the Tanakh. I have the relevant and important verses are on the top of page number 3 in your handout. Right? Where are we and what's happening and what's the basic message here? The basic message of all of this should be so obvious that you should all be shouting it out right now. The basic lesson that we are going to extract from all of this is very, very simple. You are the high priest of your own life. You are the high priest of life itself. And you have the ability to walk into the Holy of Holies, the Kodesh HaKodashim, the temple, the sanctuary, the place where only the high priest goes only once a year, and it's an amazing space. It's a trans-dimensional portal. It's a place where you can reach into God's universe itself. Or you can just put it in really straight, ordinary terms. You're the captain of your own ship, right? You're in charge of what's going on, and your life is as holy and as valuable and as precious to God as the high priest himself, right? And if that's all you learn from this, that's enough. I can go home and give myself a pat on the back and say, I showed these people something, okay? You're the high priest of your own life. You're in charge of your own destiny, and your life is, in fact, a sacred activity. And if you maintain this program of 8 things in your life, either when you get dressed in the morning or when you have time for meditation during the day, you're gonna really be flying through life, okay? Where are we in the Bible when we get to Exodus chapter 28? Don't all answer at once. Yeah, Parshat Tetzaveh, it's the Mishkan, the building of the portable sanctuary that the Israelites used in the 40 years while they were traveling from Egypt to the land of Israel. So far, so good? Right. Everything that they had there, all the utensils, all the various things that they did, very much the same as what is in the temple in Jerusalem many generations later when it's built. Translations are going to vary. I'm looking at Sefaria and whatever old-fashioned translation they happen to have here. But we have in chapter 28 a listing of the various things that have to be done to get Aaron, the first high priest, ready for all his work. All right, so I'm just starting here at verse number 1, chapter 28. And bring forward your brother Aaron with his sons from among the Israelites to serve as priests. God is giving Moses instruction, right? Make sacral vestments for your brother. Isn't that a wonderful sentence? Make sacral vestments for your brother, for dignity and adornment, right? We're not going to parse all of these things, but we're going to try and just get a list of English words for the various garments. And I know I've written this down somewhere, right? Because they're not all words that can be translated easy into English. Verse number 3. Instruct all who are skillful, whom I have endowed with the gifts of skill to make the vestments, etc., etc. Here we are in verse number 4, and that's right at the top of page 3 on the handout. These are the garments that they shall make. A choshen, which is normally translated as breast piece. If you go into any synagogue, you see they have this motif all over the place. And again, go to Temple Institute and see, I'll show you after some pictures of this if you're interested. This was a cloth thing that had on it 12 stones. And each of the 12 stones represented one of the tribes of Israel. Right? Mm-hmm. An ephod. What was an ephod? How do you translate ephod into English? It was some sort of apron. Right? When you look at the pictures, you will see it looks very much like the sort of apron that you would put on in the kitchen when you're cooking. But it had a back and a front to it. And it closed around. A robe. A me'il. Me'il is today in contemporary Hebrew a coat. This was a robe of some sort. Ketonet tashbetz, a jacket, a tunic with fringes on it. Mitznefet, a headdress. A mitre is a good one, a good word for it. And a sash, an avnet, a belt. This was huge. The belt was 32 cubits long. So it was an enormous belt.
So it went around?
I'll pull out the photographs.
Like a garter?
It was like, how long is your gartel? 2 meters long, maybe? So 15 times as long as the average sort of gartel that was worn. Plus it was thick. It was wrapped round and round and round and round and round. So how many garments are that? There is the choshen, the platey thing, the ephod, the roby thing, another robe, the tunic, the hat, and the belt. There are 6 here in this verse. We've got to jump a lot of verses to get to the other 2. So there's going to be the question of why we have 6 and then 1 and then 1. If there are 8 garments, why not tell us all of them together in one shot? Right? It's a question we may or may not have an answer to really quickly, but keep it in mind. Right? So verse 4 here is an important one. Then you look at verse 5, get gold, blue, purple, crimson yarns, linen. Make the ephod of gold out of purple. All of these things were, in their time, like very, very dramatic, very expensive items. Today we look at them and I don't know, it's kind of peculiar, but this is what they were. Different types of stones. And one of the issues with the stones, the precious stones that are using, they say lapis lazuli for one of them, is again following the Temple Institute. There are about 30 different types of stones that are a possibility for being the 12 that are mentioned here. So we don't have a good handle on what they are. There is another very, very interesting piece again in the Mea Shilach where he talks about which stone goes with which month of the year. Right? Astrology is one of my other hats, and the birth stone and what that refers to and what it means. Right? Subject for another day. So you keep going here. We're in verse 12, 13, 14. Chains of pure gold, braid them. Look at verse 15 because that's one that's going to pop up. V'asita choshen mishpat. You shall make the choshen, the breastplate of decision or of justice. Right? It's called, right? One of the sections of the Shulchan Aruch of the Code of Jewish Law is called Choshen HaMishpat. Choshen Mishpat. Why is this breastplate thing termed and described as something to do with justice and with decision making? Right? Again, a very, very big aside, there was some type of means of achieving an answer to specific types of questions involved here. Right? We're going to focus this on being the Choshen HaMishpat, the breastplate of decision making, of justice, of equality. That's where we're going to put it here. But there is the whole issue of items within or the plate itself allowed you, or at least certain categories of people, the king, the high priest, to ask God a certain amount of questions and get a certain type of answer. Right? How do you know what's supposed to happen? How do you know what the future is? Should we go to war? Should we make peace? Right? Verse 17 gives you the list of stones. Some of them you recognize. We know a sapphire is a sapphire. We know a yahalom is a diamond. The others we're not so sure of what they are. But it doesn't matter for our particular thing. Each one of them has the name of one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay? How they're fastened, what type of gold rings that are involved with them. There is sufficient information here and in the Talmud to make all of these things. Okay, so far so good? Right? Okay. Me'il ha'ephod kalil techela. Verse number 31. You shall make the robe of blue. There should be an opening for the head. And on its hem, make pomegranates of blue, purple, and crimson yarn. and all around the hem with bells of gold between them all. This is the one that we started off and brought up. That around the edges of the robe, or if you have an art scroll pic, you have those pictures. I'll show you all these things later. I did actually download these pics. So there was a pomegranate made of techelet v'argaman v'tulat shani, of some type of purple, crimson, and blue cord and fiber, and then golden bells that made a noise. Right? Verse 35 says, Aaron shall wear it while officiating, so that the sound of it is heard when he comes into the sanctuary before God, and when he goes out, v'lo yamut, so that he may not die. Right? So if you just take this at its face value, either this garment that he wore, this long tunic with the bells on it, protected him from some force that was around there, or he was so obligated to use this and to wear this with so much force, so much commanding force from God, that if he didn't have this, he was chayav mita and would have to be executed had he done this as a premeditated sin. Okay? We're not interested in all the halacha here. We're not interested in any of this sort of stuff. What we're looking at here is clues in the words that are going to be really, really helpful to us to have a better life, right?
I think a bell was just discovered in her life.
I think so too. I think they did discover some, yeah. Totally amazing stuff. I have a little bit more time, right?
Yeah. No, I think they made an audio of what one bell sounded like that they found.
Right.
And they multiplied it by X
Oh, wow.
amount. And they, I don't know how, synthesize? Whatever, they made an audio of what it would sound like if the Congo was actually walking.
Very cool. We got to look for this.
You heard it on the internet. Thank you.
Everything good is on
But
the
it's based on
internet,
that
right?
one bell, or one
Right.
part of a bell that they,
Wow.
They extrapolated, and then
They have a symphony.
yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. But he made noise when he walked. Couldn't sneak around in these things. Right? And then there's this whole hat thing, and then there's a tzitz. There was a golden plate on the top of his head. Right? And fringed tunics. Aaron's sons all get these things. Yeah, so 36 is the one that introduces the new thing. Verse 36, it's on the top of page 3 in your handout. You shall make a show plate of pure gold, and grave upon it like the engraving of a seal, holy to God. So that's garment number 7, right? Garment number 7 is a plate that went on top of, right on the forehead. But actually underneath it, he had a hat. Right? And then in verse 38, we keep going on. There's all sorts of details. Verse 42, you shall make for them linen breeches. You gotta have a pair of pants. Michnasei vad, pants made of linen, right? Good for summer days like today. L'chasot bisar erva, specifically to cover the flesh of their nakedness, right? Erva, nakedness, is not a term that is unfamiliar. It is a key word in the Bible. Erva means sexual intimacy, right? Not so as people shouldn't see their lower regions, but that they should keep concealed and under control their sexual activity. Right? To see the nakedness of means to be intimate with, right? In the Hebrew idiom, in the biblical Hebrew idiom. Okay, and that's all of chapter 28. And then they have this whole ceremony of what they're going to do. Those are the 8 garments. And do we have a list of this somewhere in English?
What was the 8?
The absolute last one is the pants.
The pants.
Yeah.
That you don't see them.
Well, the pant, it was a plain linen pair of pants.
Underneath.
Yeah, they wore a robe and like a tunic, like it would be an ankle-length skirt, right?
Yeah, it's all the way, it looks like it's to the floor.
Yeah, like ankle-length,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't see where I've written out a list in English of all of these things, but it's
No,
around somewhere.
This is symbolic, like a lesson applied to the,
Right.
you know, a lesson.
That's exactly what we're getting at here. That it's all 100% a lesson. It's all 100% teaching stuff. Okay, so there are 8 of these, and now we're going to look into the Siddur, into the prayer book. Right? Liturgy. Okay, another nice word.
This says English. Oh, this says English, see? This says English.
Okay, so find the weekday morning service
Okay.
and the blessings before the Shema.
Like Baruch Hu?
Just after Baruch Hu.
Okay, who was there? Ahavas Rabbi?
Hameir La'aretz and all that sort of stuff. We're going to look at it in Hebrew. We're going to look at it in English because there is a list of 8. There should be a list of 8 things here.
What, before Shema?
Just before the
The
Shema.
Ahavas Rabbi?
Yeah, maybe it's Ahavarabah. Yeah, here it is, Ahavarabah.
Yeah.
So it's the second blessing before the Shema, right? So you're all familiar with the Shema. You know what that is all about. It's every single morning of the year we say this, right? And this whole setup is put in place by the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, the men of the Great Assembly, started in the time of Ezra the prophet, so 500 or so BCE, and obviously with very, very significant intent. Here, the Rebbe of Ishbitz finds a list of 8 things that we ask God for before we cover our eyes and before we start to focus on the Shema reading, right? You still with us?
Yeah, which is it?
It's blessing number 2, Ahava Rabbah Ahavtanu. I have no idea what English translation or version you're looking at or what I'm looking at. With great love you have loved us, O Lord our God. With great and superabundant compassion have you compassion on us. Grace us and teach us. V'tein bilibeinu. We ask God to put into our hearts. Start counting 8. Lehavin, right, to understand. Lehaskel, I'm reading my English translation here. To comprehend, right? There's a difference between to understand and to comprehend, right? And we're going to get into this. Lishwera, I've lost my space, hang on. Lavinu lahaskil, if I touch it, it moves. Lishmoa, to listen. Lilmod, to learn. Lilamed, to teach. Lishmor, to keep, to understand, to keep with us. La'asot, to do. Ulikayem, and to uphold. To keep and to do and to preserve. Right? What he's actually going to focus on a little bit more is kiyum, is perpetuity of the species and of yourself, because we're looking at the genital organs, and that's where the terminology and the point is going to come out of. Right? We're only dealing with adult material here. Right? We do not say that this talk in this class was too titillating or anything like that, but we are always going to be into adult terminology here, and this is what it is, and that is where it is, right? So we have from the men of the Great Assembly, the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, a list of 8 things, right? That list here. We have from the Bible text from Exodus 28, we have a list of 8 garments, and if we have time, we have a little bit more time.
Well, this is a series, so
This is a series. We're going to continue this next time. We'll continue with the Talmud in Masechet Archin, page 16a, if you want to go look it up. Or you can read it. It's the very first page of your handout in English. What I would recommend you do is go to the Temple Institute website, and you'll get a lot of really nice pictures of their displays in their exhibition. And next time we'll talk about a field trip. We'll all go. And sounds like a plan?
Definitely.
Okay. Has everybody summary? We are looking at a basic thought that takes a list of 8 things in the Hebrew Bible, in the Chumash, the 8 garments of the high priest. And they can be learned off by heart. You can memorize them. I have done this course in this text before. I've only ever met one person who knows all of them. It was apparently taught in one of the high schools in England. So these 8 garments are in the Talmud piece that we're going to look at next time, described as being atonement for various things that the Jewish people do. Wrong, of course. Not that Jews ever do anything wrong. We're all perfect. But the priest, when he puts on and wears this particular garment, atones for that particular sin. And there's a list of 8 of them. And the correspondence is going to be very significant with the garment itself, with the key word that we've taken from the prayer before the Shema. And we're going to put this all together in a big mix, and it's going to come out as that list that we started out with of 8 commandments for being a highly effective and highly spiritual human being. Okay? Being the high priest of your own life.
Shir Chadash